Welcome back, beloveds. If episode 1 was a breath of remembering, today is a deepening. We're entering the sacred now, a space where science meets spirit, and where the stories we tell about ourselves begin to soften, reshape, and root into something deeper. So my guest today is someone who embodies this work, not just in word, but in presence. Susan is a dear friend of mine, a wise witness, and a guide who's understanding what it means to rewire belief, not just through thought, but through ritual and rhythm and sacred curiosity. But together, we'll explore neuroplasticity and trauma healing and the tender art of becoming. Not as an academic model. I want to make clear that this is a lived experience of realignment. So get cozy, pour some tea, better yet, just let yourself be. Because this is the beginning of remembering how to find safe in change and how to come home through the sacred now. And so we'll begin with a small invocation here, dropping into co-regulation through breath. Inhale deep and let it all go. I'm going to sound the bell 3 times. In this space of awareness in which everything arises, I recognize omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience in all, expressing itself, knowing itself, remembering itself through us, as us. And as I recognize this, I know that I am unified with this awareness, this consciousness, this co-creative source in which everything arises. And as I know this to be true for me, I know this to be true for everyone hearing the reverberations of my voice right now. And I know as I call forth the powers that be from Venus, Viernes, the day of beauty and creation, at this hour, at this moment, we know we are in divine co-creation, in rhythm, in remembrance, and in the sacred now. So I simply allow it to be and let it unfold into the petals that it was meant to. And so it is. So it is. We begin to flutter our eyes open, slowly come into the presence of awareness in this new atmosphere that we've created for ourselves. Welcome, my beloved. We are talking about neuroplasticity and beliefs and how they're formed. And when we look at neuroplasticity, what is that exactly? Well, on a scientific level, we're looking at how the body is meant to co-regulate itself through nervous system rewiring. So how does that work? Well, there's adaptive ways of neuroplasticity, meaning if we were to keep practicing the violin, for instance, or the piano, or a new language, right? That's a skill-based learning through memory, and it's an implicit type of a memory learning that we are utilizing for an adaptive way of being able to build new circuitry or wiring, or what's called synapsing in our brain. And so whenever we are practicing something even unconsciously, now that is a maladaptive way, sometimes building not so conducive habits for ourselves, maybe some patterns that get created over time. And so those patterns that get formed can shift us and shape us into something that was never meant for us. And so that forms beliefs. Well, where does beliefs come from? Beliefs are coming from a space of the mind stuff, the chitta vritti, as they say in yoga. And the mind stuff ripples with different outside noise that influences it constantly. They can form beliefs, especially if we hold an emotion to what it is that we feel about what they're saying. And so, as we're building this maladaptive habit forming neuroplasticity, that's where we form our different beliefs that maybe not even belong to us. That's how different identities get formed. But we can repattern those identities because we don't have to identify with any of the things that have come before right now. We can always shift and we can always shape. So, what do you know about that, Susan? How do you feel neuroplasticity and the beliefs have formed different patterns for you? And how have you seen that as a mother and as a healer and a teacher?
It begins very early in life when you're conditioned and patterns are from your parents, your surroundings, what's expected of you. And in my case, being um, a girl, I was conditioned to always be helpful, always look at others' needs before my own, be heard, be seen but not heard. And it really conditioned me to behave a certain way, which I kept throughout my life as a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, I a friend, and I have always been very kind, but I feel that somewhere along the line I did lose myself and never really knew who I was. And I'm still now learning and relearning who I am and learning how to shift my patterns to take into account my needs as well as others. My beginnings were I was a very happy child. I had a happy childhood, but again, service was always my number one, and self-care was never in the mix. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Always, whenever I was stressed or felt like I needed something, I would push those feelings down and always make sure that I was worrying and taking care of others' feelings. And that serves you well in a lot of areas when you're a mom. Of course, you have to put your children's needs first. As a daughter, I always tried to respect my parents and put their needs first. And as a wife, I always tried to be the best influence on my husband in and let him shine without really ever worrying about how that made me feel or how I could know what I was good at or what I liked. I feel like I'm spiraling a little bit, but
No, it's okay. If you don't mind, I remember, when you were sharing your story with me and how, you know, it was forming different patterns through the, relationships that you had in your life. And um, and yet you formed such a resilience to it. And even though those pieces were part of your earlier identity, you've learned now, and I've seen it so clearly, how you've been able to put you first, um, and learned how to, no matter how much everyone else came first before, you've been able to put yourself in a position where now, um, you're still there for your daughter and your grandchildren, which I think is absolutely beautiful. But you give yourself such an amazing amount of freedom. I love the way you live. I love your Dodge, your van. She's got this
my
most
little
amazing
RV.
RV camper van that is so awesome, and she goes wherever she wants, whenever she wants. Your ability to have the job that allows you that leeway, and being a publisher and working towards something that is so absolutely for you now in this sacred now is reforming and repatterning, and you're doing it in real time. And I
Yes,
think that that is so powerful.
And thank you for that. I really have let go of a lot of the conditioning and patterning that I learned throughout my life. When I started understanding the connection between your mind, your spirit, your body, and how our brains can change. And even now, with new studies coming out, they show that as adults, our brains can change. We're not stuck with the same brain. We can change that brain and that pattern every day. And I feel like I've finally taken control of my life. And I'm still very helpful. I'm still always there for people, but I also know how to care for myself. And I also am learning what I like. And by buying my little Class B RV that I drive on a daily basis and have everything with me, I can go on adventures at the drop of a hat. I just love being the freedom of that. And it's also repatterning my thinking to know what I like to do professionally,
Yeah.
what I like to do in my personal life. And with Centers for Spiritual Living, I found a community where I can be of service, but also go there for remembering and remembering how to center myself and how the neuroplasticity of our brains is amazing. And this connection that I've been learning through Center of Spiritual Living, as well as my community with you, Amberly, and people around me that are like-minded, exploring this world in a whole new way, a spiritual way of being, and and know that we can change every single day. If we don't like something in our lives, we can change it. We change our thought pattern, we change our rituals, and we can change our lives.
Indeed, indeed. In Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind and Spirit, says, change your thinking, change your life. It's a little slogan that we have. And it's really interesting, in science, they talk about long term potentiation and also what's called long term depression. And so, long term potentiation, LTP, is something that is needed for building long term memories to something. But the way that we build those memories to something is really like to retain something is to feel it and to build a relationship through emotion to something, right? Because it goes through the limbic system, the hippocampus and the amygdala are very much correlated with learning and memory. And they are absolutely activated during different experiences, especially ones that make us feel good or threatened. So, whatever has happened in our lives in the past, and the patterning that came that may not be conducive for us to be vibrating at our highest frequency now, um, then we just shift those thoughts into the opposite ones because it's like a pendulum swinging. We're always in this varying degree of light. It's not that there's an absence of it, it's just a varying degree between white and black. And so, whenever we're in that space of pain, then that's where some sort of pattern could happen. But that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to go inward and say, okay, I'm going to work through these shadows and I'm going to do what's called Kriya Yoga, which is really looking at this tapasya, this burning desire to see it through and purify it, and svadhyaya, that inner dialogue of self-study and knowing what is going on, knowing thyself so deeply, and then remembering the Ishvara Pranidhana, that there is a higher being beyond this mind body that is directing it all. And that is the sacred now. That is the space that we come into. That is what we call forth. We can call that forth through the energies of the planets, but we can also call that forth from that space of our hearts that's connected with every electromagnetic frequency that ever was and ever will be. And at the end, maybe we'll go into a practice on how to do that. But before we do, I would really like to talk and ask you a couple of questions about like how has your own nervous system like been learning like lately? How like what has it been learning and how has it been learning? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah. Um, I think I've been learning what safety feels like. Sometimes you're in a low level of survival state, and I know I carry tension in my shoulders and um, my neck, and I just constantly would hold my breath without really realizing that I was holding my breath. Um, I'm learning how to regulate my nervous system. I'm learning how through breath and through finding those opportunities when I feel I'm going into a pain, my what I call the pain body, and using that as an opportunity to do the opposite and come into thinking in a more positive light. And what is it inside me that is keeping me in that pain body? What is it that I need to know about myself or learn about myself and address with myself? And by having those discussions inside myself, I'm able to let them go more, be more of an observer and just understand where those thoughts and where that pain comes from and learn how to more observe it than dwell in it,
Mhm.
and then find the joy, the opposite of that pain. And it frees my whole body. I feel more alive. I feel um, that those thoughts that you have in the gap between your thoughts. So you have all these thoughts and they're always coming in, but there's a gap in between there that if you can grab onto that little silence in between, that's when you're actually hearing yourself. What's because your thoughts are not you, your body is not you, you're somewhere in between. And to find that silence, I call it my silence, where I can actually feel. I get so joyful when I feel this because I know that this is the eternal part of me. It's always there. There's always I'm living through this body and this mind, but they are not who I am, that my soul, my essence. And that's joy, that's love, that's light. And when I feel that, I just get so excited and joyful. And then that turns my thoughts around and I start thinking of all the possibilities, or just look at my surroundings and see the bird going by, or the sun coming up, or the moon rising.
Mm.
So we have so much in this world to be thankful for. I'm just thankful that I have these hands that I can write because I love to write. And sometimes I'll use the computer, but most of the time I'm using a pen or pencil or whatever I can grab and writing these beautiful thoughts that are coming from this soul. It's not from this mind or this body, it's from my inner essence. And when I can tap into that, and breathe and calm my nervous system, and using all the tools that I'm learning through yoga, which, by the way, a lot of people think yoga is just moving of your body into certain positions. That's only the very beginning of yoga. Yoga is really all about connecting with your mind and your spirit and moving your body in ways that calm that nervous system and let you see and feel. And feeling is the biggest thing. Everything stems from what we feel. So if we're feeling blue or down, we need to look around us, find those things that give us joy, and feel those things. And when you feel things that make you happy, your heart just it lights up, and that love inside you, that light is so bright in all of us. Sometimes we just have to really dig deep to find it. I didn't know it existed for a long time. Um, and now that I do, I just get so joyful. And when I forget, when I start not remembering, I get busy with work or the day-to-day activities. Sometimes well, a lot of times now, I've tried to pattern myself to take a moment, take a breath, and think about this moment, this now, because now is really all there is. When we worry about what's coming or what happened in the past, we're living in the future that isn't here yet. And the past that's gone, those are not real. What's real is right now, this very moment. And that's joy when you can get to that place. And I want everyone to find a way to get to that place and feel this joy. Sometimes I'm just driving and I just feel so much joy and
Oh,
light as I'm driving and I'm looking at this beautiful scenery around me. Even if I'm in the middle of a city, I can find joy and beauty. And I feel like I'm bursting sometimes with
mm,
the joy of now.
mm. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that share. Wow, wow, wow. I just want to sit with that for a moment and really honor that, because
Gives me
that
the
right there,
giggles. It gives me the giggles.
that is the sacred now. Mm. Yes to that. Yes to that. Oh, so when did you first feel the body saying yes to that change? Not like because it had to, but because like it could.
Yes. Well, I think I had an experience where I had been through so much and I had so much weight I was carrying around that my shoulders were like hunched forward and I had this like physical bump underneath my where my rib cage comes together. And it was all just hunched in. I went to the chiropractor. I've been doing a lot of work on just trying to figure out who I am and what I like because I never thought about that in the past. And I knew that I had some physical things that I needed help with. So I went to a chiropractor. Hadn't really done that before. And I was on my third session and I was nervous because they're manipulating your neck or your back. And I
Hmm.
never had any given anyone permission to do that, because you get so hunched into yourself. You just, so for me to let someone else try to help
Hmm.
was the first time I'd really asked for help. So I was on my third session, and whatever happened during the adjustment, all of a sudden my shoulders were back. And I felt like I was sitting upright. I got off the table and I just felt this sense of release. And I realized that this bump was no longer there. It was flat and I felt open and my chest felt open. And I was like so stunned. And then all of a sudden, my vision went blurry. I felt nauseous. I got up from the table and made it to the restroom, and they didn't notice anything because I was done with my adjustment. Made it to the restroom, and I was physically ill for I don't know how long, and still really couldn't see. I managed to clean up my hands, get out of the restroom, make it out to my van. I love my van. I have my own bed, my own bathroom, my own kitchen, my own space.
So awesome.
I made it into my van. I laid down trying to get my vision back. And then I ended up getting physically ill a couple more times, laid down. My, I could not see. I felt nauseous. This was probably a good hour that I felt this way. And then finally I started feeling a little bit better, was able to drink a little bit of water. I didn't know what had just happened to me.
Sure.
So I finally was able to drive home, got home. The next morning, I called the chiropractor and I told her what had happened. And she apologized for not recognizing what had happened to me and asked me to please make sure I let her know if something like that happened again so they could
Mm.
help me. But what had happened was I had released
Yep.
all these toxins that had been building up in my body for all these years. And that amount of toxin coming out all at once just threw my system for a loop. And I'm lucky that it wasn't worse than it
Mm.
was because there was so much built up. And that's when I realized, oh, this is a shift. This is me letting someone help me. This is me understanding that I have to listen to my body and I have to listen to those thoughts behind the thoughts
Mm.
and pay attention and not let this happen again. I don't want this buildup to ever happen again.
Mm.
And having that physical reaction just made me realize I had a lot more work to do. But I was on my way. I was on this journey and now I feel like I can share with people and help people in a whole different way. And I still love to help people. I love feeling like just by listening to someone, by understanding and being able to relate to things that they're going through, even if they're not exactly what I went through, I can feel their feelings without internalizing them, letting them release, and I can actually offer guidance and advice in just in ways that they could take that breath and things that they can do to try to help themselves. So I think I realized my nervous system needs attention, and by learning rituals and practices and turning inward, um, that we can help ourselves and we can control our thoughts. And I want to share my joy. I just want to share my joy in knowing that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so, so much, Susan. That is exactly Kriya Yoga right there. That is the burning desire to see it through, tapasya. That is Svadhyaya, self study at its finest, recognizing and knowing myself. And when there's those subtle shifts, and then being able to say, oh, wow, this is the shift. This is the threshold. This is the new becoming. And you spiral from there inward instead of out.
And I love that term becoming because now I feel like every day I'm becoming and I can become whatever I want and I can let my expression flow. And that's when I started writing even more because I realized that when I don't write,
Mhm.
I hold stress.
Definitely.
And so I found that writing and now working on publishing and sharing my ideas um, gives me freedom. and gives me
Definitely.
expression.
Agreed. Yeah, I created the Planetary series that has to do with journaling for that specific reason. It's a three-part series that goes into how to integrate the understanding of like celestial bodies and how each day is a planetary day. So there's a planet that governs that day with an affinity and an archetype that you can harness, you can utilize, you can call forth that energy, and you can work with it and remedy it. If there's an excess of it, and you're noticing that in your life because you understand the archetypes and the qualities and the affinities of that planet, you're like, oh, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense that this is happening. Okay. And then you understand the alignment of the cosmos and what's also happening, not just in the planetary day, but within the cosmos in real time. Like, okay, these are aligned this way. So this is why I am feeling this in this part of my body. That part is medical astrology and really going into understanding that certain organs, tissues, and even cells are governed by the planets too. It's fascinating. So I go into that in the Planetary series, and it's a really good series. I highly recommend it. It's under Return to Rhythm on my website. But coming back to the Sacred Now and what we do in Science of Mind, we took a visioning course that was absolutely amazing. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, is the founder of Agape International in LA. He wrote a book called Life Visioning, and he talks about the four levels of consciousness. And I think that they're really important to understand because we fluctuate from these four levels of consciousness all the time.
Time.
And
Yes,
this
all
is
the time.
really talking about neuroplasticity and how we can shift, we can change our thinking into a willingness versus a willfulness. And that's really where that structure and it comes out because the first level of consciousness is having to do with victim consciousness. Oh God, why is everything happening to me like this? God, why? Why is my life like this? Not fair. I deserve better. Oh, those words, fair and deserve. Don't use the F word because how do we know? You know, it's like, well, I thought I had it bad when I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet.
Feet.
And so we can see that that victim level of consciousness is keeping us in the loop. It's keeping us in that pattern. But then we can arise and we can arrive at a place of manifested consciousness. Life is happening for me, not to me.
Yeah.
I am here and life is happening for me. But what is it for truly? Because, you know, the secret, as the book says and the documentary, is really about manifestation, right? The law of what is it? Attraction. And
Attraction.
you know, like how can we manifest what it is that we want in our life? Well, that comes naturally when we give it away and surrender to the higher levels of consciousness. Because why is life happening for me? Who is me? Is it the little I? Or is it the other I? Is it the other I that is understanding that the for me is for soul's evolution? It's for the greater expansion of awareness
Yeah.
that you are connected to, that we are all connected to, the one mind, the divine mind that is knowing itself. And so,
And life is happening through us,
yes,
not even for us, but through us. Like you said, to help the learning and the understanding and the growth of the one mind of all of humanity, of all of existence.
yes. And that is the third level of consciousness that Michael Bernard Beckwith talks about and what life visioning is about. Visioning is not a vision, like a vision board. Actually, when I took the course, this was the visioning that came out of the course. Um, it's not a vision board, it's what came through. And what comes through is a willingness. It's not the willfulness that the manifestation conscious level comes through. And when you can be in a space where you are allowing, well, let's try that for a moment. Take a deep breath and let it all go. And ask inward, what is my highest purpose that you have for me? How can I show up and express myself at my highest? What do I need to know? What does it look like? Colors, the scent, feeling inside that you get. And as you sit with that, things may not come right away, and that's okay. It's the willingness to allow it to come when it's time, because this is divine timing. Like plant time, it works in rhythm. And then we go deeper. What must I release? And that is where you came into that space, Susan, where you were able to release the toxins. What must I embrace? That allowing and that openness once you embody yourself to the sacred now. And what must I become? Is there anything else that you will know from me, God? And at this state, you are at the fourth level of consciousness. God is working as you now. There's no separation between you or anything else. No duality. No good. No bad. No right. No wrong. No black or white. Just isness. Tatvamasi. You are that too. Those are the four levels of consciousness that you can move through when you're visioning in a willingness of becoming in the sacred now.
And the letting go and not trying to force things.
Yeah.
That's what I had to learn when I was learning how to vision, was to not try to make something pop up out of thin air, to really listen and just be. And it may not always come right then. And then somehow it just shows up and you have that aha moment.
Yep. And then it's like what I say with Health Wealth Abundance Incorporated, the nonprofit. It's about health, wealth, abundance, or even what we talk about in the science of mind with the cause, the soil, and the plant. So like the seed, the soil, and the plant is that health, wealth, abundance, because it's a healthy mind that we're trying to cultivate always. And thanking the source, the heavens, that we already have that. Thank thee for a healthy mind. And the thought,
Gratitude.
the thinking, now thinking for a wealth of wisdom, right? That throat chakra is listening. It's not just speaking, it's listening. And so now we can be thankful that we have this wealth of wisdom that's speaking through us, because we're listening with the ear behind the ear, as Michael Beckwith talks about.
Yeah.
And then we thank Source for an abundance of love given and received. Now we turn that to thinking, saying, and doing from the heart space we do. We think, we talk about it, we write it down, but then we start leading from our heart. That's what I tell my kids all the time: lead from your heart, let your heart guide you. And that naturally allows your chest to move forward instead of cowering in like this. It naturally allows you to be up and out. So that is the science of mind, and that is neuroplasticity, and that is the sacred now. It's beautiful. So I have one last real question. How is it that ritual is shaping neuroplasticity for you? Maybe one or two more questions.
Okay.
Like, yeah,
Yeah. What were you going to
how is
say?
neuroplasticity like shaping, and like what is it, what type of a ritual do you do with neuroplasticity, other than like, well, we just talked about one, but is, are there any others that you?
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest thing for me is remembering to be in the now. Uh, so I use pause a lot when I'm going through my daily life, instead of just reacting to things that come up. I stop and I just pause and try to be in the presence. Sometimes just telling myself when thoughts come in that your little monkey mind is
Mm-hmm.
going, I will stop and pause and say next, and go on
Mm-hmm.
to a more positive thought. And if it still isn't a positive thought, or if it's still not getting me to that space that I feel I need to move into, I'll do it again. I pause and I say next. And it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of reminds me to stop and reframe and rethink and move forward in a more positive light. And remember, um, life is, it's living through me. It's things aren't happening at me. It's, or for me even, really. It's through me. And I want to show God a good time.
Yeah.
And people call God different things, but I don't use the word God that often. I use more my inner essence, my inner being, my soul, the Christ-like way of being. And by
Beautiful.
pausing and reformulating thought, that has a lot to do with being able to stay present. Does that answer your question, or is
Beautiful.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a ritual. That's definitely a ritual, right? You pause. If there's ever a moment that you have this spiraling outward, you say, no, I'm going to pause
Yes.
and I'm going to ask myself, is this the truth? Is all of
Yes.
this stuff that's going on and rippling outward like a pebble that gets dropped into water, is that really the drama that's unfolding, or is that all just in my mind? Am I thinking about right now? And what I'm thinking about right now, is that conducive for me to be vibrating at my highest frequency?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And relating to other people from my highest level, because it's important for us, I think, to keep our vibrations positive, um, because it helps other people. And so often in my day-to-day job, which is taxes, people are, you know, fearful, or they're worried. And if I can bring a better vibration to them, a lot of times by the time they're finished interacting with me, they have a smile on their face, even if they still have their struggles. They have a better um, mind frame about it, and they're still able to see some joy even through struggles. And I feel it's important for all of us to shine our light to others and our vibrations. And it's not always possible to keep your vibrations high, and that's why we need our rituals and we need our pause. I have little affirmations that I keep around me, and just reading an affirmation gives you that pause and reframe.
Exactly. Exactly. I actually have a July bundle, ritual bundle for working with the cosmos and the different planetary alignments.
Mm.
It has an affirmation in it, a somatic practice, and then what it is that the cosmos speak about that alignment. On each card, there's 7 cards, and there's an invocation that begins. There's an altar integration recommendation at the back, and then a blessing out. It's only like $9.99 on my apothecary store website page rather, but
Yes, yeah.
it's a really
The
good one.
Yes, the tools that you're putting up, um, I, I think there's so much good material there, and I'm looking forward to um, exploring it more. And it's it's beautiful material, Amberly.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's a labor of love, and that's it's what I'm here for. It's
It's
I
how
made a
you're
vow.
shining your light.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lived and embodied experience. Everything that I put there is something that I have directly been working with and through. So I see you, I honor you, and I feel you all wholeheartedly in the moments of thinking that that drama that is being relived is something that's a part of us, is never going to help us get into a different repatterning. So the rituals and the different um, somatic practices as well are a part of that ritual. So the somatic practices are really about like the asana, but it doesn't have to be. What is asana? That is a posture. And literally, the Yoga Sutras only say one thing about that: Sthiram Sukham Asanam. Sthira means steady. Sukha means comfortable or happy. And asana is the posture. That's all. And that's the third limb of yoga. It's just to get into a space of comfort so that you can then breathe. That's pranayama. That's the fourth limb of yoga. And if you can control the breathing, well, that's a ritual. It's a ritual to take in the inhalation and recognize that there is a pause at the top, to release that which no longer serves with your exhalation, and recognize that there is a pause at the bottom. So there are 4 different parts of our breath, and we can have control over each of those parts. And that propels us into the fifth limb of yoga, which is pratyahara, sense withdrawal. So we get rid of the constant stimulus of sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And when we can do that, now we can get into a place where we are open and receptive to grace. We are breathing. We are still and steady in our posture. And now we can go into the final three limbs of yoga, which are a beingness. It's not a practice anymore. After pratyahara, after sense withdrawal, is dharana, which is concentration. And dhyana is meditation, but that's a state of being. And then samadhi, which is the bliss, the freedom, that pure conscious awareness. And that is what we have in the science of mind, in the sacred now. There are
That
many paths, one truth, you know?
yes, many paths. And Deepak Chopra, he calls that the field of infinite possibilities, that bliss. And love is everything. Bliss is the heart of love. If you can reach that bliss state, that's the field of unlimited possibilities.
That's awareness in which everything arises. That's
Yes.
awesome. Thank you. That was just wonderful. So I have a couple of other questions and then we'll close. But, how does, like, what has been unlearning you lately? And where do you feel the sacred now most clearly in your life today? And then we'll end.
So like, what have I been shedding?
Unlearning, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
Um,
kind of went over that, but
yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm unlearning is that God is separate from me. I'm learning that spirit lives within, flows through me, through this body, through this breath. Um, I'm learning all those old scripts of life experiences, um, that they don't define me, that's not me. Those are my experiences, yes. But that doesn't, I can change my experiences anytime I want to, as long as I remember to go to my breath and find that inner bliss and change my thinking, change my thoughts, and change my life.
thank you so much, Susan. Is there a practice that you would like to share with us, something that we can take home with us and learn from you that you would do, like a mantra or some sort of an affirmation or prayer?
Let's see. Um, okay. Well, I know I've kind of touched on it before, but one of the things that I do, main things that I do, is I will just place my hands on my heart or on my chest, wherever it feels comfortable. And I'll close my eyes and I'll say, I am here. I am whole. I am complete. I am enough. I am sacred. I am present. Take my breath. And I live in the now. I am enough is the main thing I say to myself. And just grounding myself in my breath and holding my heart, or sometimes even just giving myself a hug, regulates that nervous system and reminds me that I'm safe. And if I stay in the present, in the now, I am alive and safe and can move into the world from
Mm,
there and keep that pause even through the chaos of life. I get to have that silence a lot more often just by going to my breath
mm.
anytime I feel stressed. So knowing that you are enough and that you are loved just for who you are and to be in the present.
Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Well,
And I
this has
just,
been, oh, go
can I
ahead.
just say thank you for having me today. And I just wanted to say that I think that just knowing you has been a blessing in my life. And um, we met about 3 years ago at Center for Spiritual Living. And when I first met you, I don't see auras, but I feel energy and I feel vibrations. And I just felt such love and vulnerability from you, where you're not afraid to wear your heart on your sleeve and show your emotions and show your love. And you, your presence drew me to you from the first day I met you, and the peace that you give me, and I hope that I give to you whenever we interact. It's very special.
Thank you. And yes, reciprocated indeed. I felt you right away. And I'm so, so grateful that we have this connection, that our paths crossed. And I don't believe in coincidences.
No.
Everything happens for a reason. With that, I will just say that I am so, so grateful for this unfolding, for this beautiful expansion of the spiral, for the neuroplasticity and sacred now, episode 2 of the cosmic connections, our first of the celestial conversations, where we come together in divine spirit, loving awareness, understanding, hope, joy, and becoming. And I simply bless it, and I allow it to be, knowing it is good, knowing it is God. And we affirm by saying together, and
And
so
so it
it
is.
is.
And so it is.
Thank you for joining me so much, Susan. I'm Amberly, and this is Cosmic Connections. Until next time, thank you for being with me. You can stay tuned for Sutra Satsang, and we go over the Yoga Sutras 1.1, Hatha Yoga Anushasanam, and what that means. Blessings. Take care. Hari Om.